Oh, yeah, and great question from Sean. What happens if there's a rock in their way? And that actually might be a perfect segue. So I'm actually going to tear us away from the snails for a moment and share the screen again because we're gonna find out. We're going to do some further investigating or exploring about what happens when the snail hits a barrier, and we're actually going to write a narrative about what happens. So the Common Core standards say that narratives involve using descriptive words and then also a sequence of events. So in a moment, we're going to play a video of a snail on an open, clear CD case. And so it's going to be coming to the wall of that clear CD case. And after watching the video, we'll ask that you use some of your descriptive words and put your observations into a sequence of events to construct a narrative about what happens when the snail hits a barrier. And then we'll share those. And again, since we're focusing on TK2, for pre-readers, you might have students describe orally, or you could construct a narrative together and you could have a chart here or something here to co-construct that. So let's move to the next slide, and I'm going to play this video. There we go. So again, the prompt is to write a narrative about what happens when a snail hits a barrier using the descriptive words that you brainstormed.
Yami would like to know, how long does the narrative have to be?
Great question. As long as you'd like. I mean, we usually get like 1 to 3 sentences, I would say, maybe more like 2 to 4 sentences during the workshop. And I'll let the video play a little bit longer and then I will restart it. But if you feel like you've seen what happens, you have your descriptive words and you're ready to put your observations into a sequence of events, then you could start your narrative now. I'll go ahead and start it over now. Here we go. And if you haven't already started writing your narrative, if you'd like to go ahead and do that now, that would be great. In a moment or two, we will go ahead and share some of these narratives. Oh, great question, Leslie. Thank you. Yeah, you can write the narrative on a piece of scrap paper if you have them, or you could write it in the chat box and then be able to share it in the chat box as well. Whatever works for you. We'll have a chance to either read what's in the chat box or have a few people share orally, so either will work. I'll let this play for a little bit longer while people are taking a moment to write or finish up their narratives. snail, there we go. The snail finally reached the top. All right. Do we have any volunteers to share narratives? And I'm actually going to stop my share in case we want to share orally, and then we could see one another share. It looks like we've got some starts of narratives in the chat box as well. This is great. The slimy snail comes to a wall and investigate it using its tentacles. It uses its long, sticky body to climb and creep up the wall. Great. Anybody willing to share theirs out loud? And we could just try to unmute. I know that's a rather large group, but we could try it that way. Otherwise, we could use the chat box as like a list.
There's a couple narratives in the chat box if somebody wants to read them, or.
Certainly, yeah. The writers could read them out loud, or I could start reading them in the chat, reading the ones in the chat box out loud. That works too. From Diana, when a snail hits a barrier, they stretch out their long necks to investigate. Next, they stretch out their long eyes to see where they can go. Then they pull up and move along the barrier, carrying their shiny, smooth shells. I love the use of descriptive words in that. That's wonderful. Yeah. Oh, I love how some of them name the snails. Well, Skippy the snail has a sticky foot. The snail uses its sticky foot to climb the wall. I wish I had a sticky foot. Yeah, the asymmetrical snail moves slowly toward the barrier. Then it begins to climb. The snail is not stopped by the barrier. They use it for like a suction cup to hold onto the wall and climbs up very slowly. The snail tested the blocking piece and saw if it was safe to go on. Great. Last chance. Anybody else want to share their narrative either in the chat box or out loud?
Huh. Heidi has one.
Great. My name is Slick and I'm a snail. I usually slip along a straight path, but sometimes a large rock or something gets in my way. It can be tricky, but I know how to handle it. First, I stretch out so I can get an idea of what it is. Next, I slowly stick my feet to the object. Very, very fun. Yeah, it's always really great to see how different and creative all the narratives are, which is really, really nice. Awesome. Great. Well, we can continue to type and share in the chat box. Maybe I'll move us along to our next text type. Oh, well, let's pause a moment actually and reflect a little bit about narratives. Yes, so Andrew just put a link in the chat box, and that is a link to a document that just includes kind of the main standards for both narrative and argument at each grade level. And then it also has parts highlighted in red, and those are the parts we feel align well with science as well. So it's just to get us thinking a little bit about how we can use science as a tool for writing narratives. So take a moment to look that doc over if that's helpful. And then we just wanted to collect a few thoughts about these questions. So how do you think doing a science activity and then writing about it lends itself to writing narratives? And how might you support your own TK to 2 students in writing narratives? So taking a moment to reflect and then responding in the chat box, or putting your name in the chat box and then you could share out loud as well. Great, thank you, Debbie. Absolutely. So students gain vocabulary during that science experience to help them articulate their stories.
And I think Sierra also said she could share.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, Sierra, go ahead.
So for the writing narratives, I would say, it gives you that chronological, and it gives you that opportunity to say first, next, last. It also gives the categorical formation. So you could talk about the categories if you're talking about like types of animals. So this animal does this animal does this, and this animal does that. So definitely leads to that narrative style. And in supporting them, I definitely use a lot of modeling. So I do my own, and we work together. What's your feedback for me? And working with feedback, that's a big part.
Great. Thank you so much, Sierra. Would anyone like to add on or share something else out loud as well? We've got some nice ideas coming in the chat box as well.
There's a nice comment from Pam about working with little kids that we all do here. Pam, do you want to share that, or should we read it out loud?
I don't mind sharing. I think that using, and my name is Pam Montgomery, I'm from Hemet Unified. Having the students being able to see, in that instance with the snail, seeing something that is real life, right then, live, having conversation is so fantastic. And working with students virtually, doing a shared writing with your Google Doc or whatever the case may be, and having students give their input. You could do the whole, how does the sentence start? Talk to me about it. How should we start the sentence? And just giving that shared writing. And if you could even go with interactive, with like using a Jamboard or something, and allowing a student to be able to even go as far as putting the period in, or adding a beginning sound. So it is a little bit more of a shared writing virtually.
Thank you so much for sharing out loud, Pam. That's great. Yes, we've also got some thoughts about doing the science activity engages the students, plays upon their natural curiosity, allows them to make great observations. So awesome. Any other thoughts that we want to share in the chat box or out loud? Yes, that experience piece is huge, and wanting to write about it if it's engaging enough. Absolutely.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me get there.
Ooh.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that is important for kids is that we have the opportunity to, kind of storyboard. And on this side, right, we have the beginning, right? You see the snail there, and then the middle, and then the end. Now I'm making my end as the solution is that here's an ordinary snail with superpowers because they have climbing. Just a story that goes along with that. But one of the things that we have to impress on kids, according to our standards, is that we want that beginning and middle and end. And every story has that setting, the characters, the problem and solution. We have the action or events that happen here. And I put the science in that you guys were talking about. I thought it very interesting. Thank you so much for talking about how they breathe with their whole body. What a cool thing. And we want to put that, thanks Fred, we want to put that right into our story, don't we? We want them to have the science and experience the science inside that story, because any new learning is an opportunity for us really to really improve that writing. And guess what it does? It really makes that all of the science stick with them. And then someone had said, that there was a foot. It's not feet. It's the 1 foot, right? And so we want to put that piece in there too. So any time that we get more information, we can really put those into a story. And even at a very low age, they're not necessarily writing all this, but for sure, what are they doing? They're going to be doing this orally and talking it through. We may model that for them, but as with all kids, I used to work with preschool kids, and we would just simply model them with the with the felt boards, and they would just say it back to us. Even if they didn't have the language, they would say it with the same prosody and all the pieces that we were trying to do. So anyway, that's just a little bit on narrative.
And Lynn, is that a cape on your snail at the bottom?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I didn't say it was a good cape. It just is a cape.
That is really, really awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Lan. Yeah, we've got some words of appreciation in the chat box as well. Very, very cool.